Good afternoon and welcome back for another episode of MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers podcast, brought to you in partnership with ADHD Liberty, breaking the pipeline between schools and prisons. If you want to know more about ADHD Liberty, the links are in the comments. Today's guest is the fabulous Gemma Crane. Gemma, welcome to the show.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Yeah, it's always weird, isn't it?
Hello.
We record these so far in advance. It's if you're watching this, it is published in the afternoon. It is 9 a.m. Hence, I look a bit worse for wear. I should be able to get up for 9, but here we go. So Gemma is the founder and director of Mindset HR. So that's a consultancy that goes beyond traditional HR by focusing much more on attitudes, behaviors, and workplace culture to create a happier, more productive business. Gemma's got over 25 years of experience in HR and recruitment, and she's worked across industries from retail to healthcare, law enforcement, and specifically on developing people-centric strategies that help bridge the gap between business owners and employees. She's super passionate about transforming workplace dynamics, ensuring businesses thrive through fostering trust, collaboration, and transparency. And if anybody has been watching the show recently, you'll have seen that I've, in my own personal account, not just on the MarketPulse, the values that you've kind of pulled out in the bio there, they are very central to what a lot of the network is that we work with. So I'm sure that you get lots of positive feedback on
Amazing.
how you differentiate yourself. And I think in 2025, do you know what? I think it's the way forward.
Yeah.
Rewinding back to the beginning, Gemma,
Gosh.
not many people aim to get into HR. How and why did you end up in HR in the first place?
I have to say, it was probably a bit of a fluke. I started in retail actually when I came out of school, did the customer service piece, and then a friend of mine, a family friend actually, a friend of mine was working for a well-known head office retailer at the time that were growing, and there was a vacancy available, and I applied for it. And of course, refer a friend was kind of very much of their business model as well. So
Yeah.
managed to get the job there and was there for, I think I was there for about 10 years.
Mhm.
So very much started off in the head office in the HR department, or personnel as it was back in the day. So yeah, started off as an admin for them, and then worked my way sort of through different roles. Ended up as a recruitment manager for them before sort of moving on. I had a slight break, so I lived in Turkey for a bit whilst I was there. So I went off dancing and singing, which is my
Wow.
background, and then came back. And
Wow.
the role obviously had changed slightly, understandably. And they were kind enough to sort of let me go off and come back. And then decided it was time for a change. Really, I think living abroad, makes you grow and evolve differently as a being. So yeah, I was quite different when I came back.
So when you say singing and dancing, because that covers quite a lot of aspects. I've got friends who are like professional dancers and singers, and I've
Yeah.
got people who are kind of entertainment. Like what kind of singing and dancing are we talking?
So over there, I was doing production shows. So we would do 6 different themed
Mhm.
shows a week in an open top restaurant. So it was a sit down
Mhm.
restaurant. People would come along and
Fantastic.
yeah, we would choreograph and set the routines. We did a Bond night, a Tina Turner night, a Disney themed one,
Yeah.
a showgirl one. So there was all different themes throughout the. But I guess as a dancer, I'd been a dancer since the age of 3. So I'd done a variety of different things. Been over to LA and worked for Disney for a bit, and travelled, did the Princess Cruises. So that's sort of always been a bit of a background for me, and I've been really fortunate that most HR roles that I was in, I was able to go off and have a sabbatical, or take that career break and either go back into that business when I came back home, or to step into that next role. So I was very fortunate.
So when you got the opportunity to do that, and you're out there in Turkey and kind of working in that environment, what brought you back again?
Uh, a relationship.
Ah,
Yeah, so a relationship. A man brought me back to England. So he sadly lost his mum, and he was coming out every other week during his sort of off shift to come and see me. He was from the UK, and yeah, lost his mum very suddenly. So one weekend he was with me, and unfortunately, sadly lost his mum. So I came home to support the family really, and that sort of went from there.
I don't imagine, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that, but I can also imagine that experience influenced you quite heavily working in people and HR, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we were a team that worked together over there, and it was really interesting because when I got the contract, I got on the plane at Gatwick Airport, and I'd never met these people before, and we were all together, and we were going to be living together in a block of apartments, and we got to know each other very, very quickly. But
Can
yeah,
imagine
it was
it's yeah,
we were from all over the
yeah.
UK, and yeah, we ended up being that sort of production team, and it was good fun. Tough at times. I missed home. I really missed the roast dinners and the comforts of your own home, the carpet because we didn't have carpets, and just really odd
Yeah.
things, really. But yeah, missed home. I was still quite young at the time, and hadn't sort of been away from home for that period of time before, so was quite homesick for a period of time, but soon settled in.
Then take us back to the HR side of things. So you kind of progressed through, I guess, a corporate
Mhm.
HR structure for
Mhm.
quite some time.
Mhm.
Having worked retail myself and for quite a number of years and experiencing that kind of career, I can imagine that you found that corporate life both quite safe and secure, but also quite frustrating at times.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really safe and secure. It had its challenges, I think, at times. Corporate is quite rigid in terms of its processes, and um, back then there wasn't much flexibility around change and innovation. So for me, I was always quite a creative person. I think being in sort of performing arts and that side of things, I was always quite a creative person. So I would always have different ideas and want to put those things forward. So yeah, it had its positives. You had the security of being corporate, I think. But certainly when I was going more senior in the HR world, sitting between the managing director and the finance director was more challenging because they would be talking about more cash flow and more money, and this is where we want to get to, but not ever considering the people and not ever really
Yeah.
looking at what people do they need and what roles do they need to be able to grow that
Yeah.
business to what that number looks like. So for me, it was a little bit frustrating at times. And I would be in the middle of that saying, hang on a minute, take all of that away, take all of those numbers out. But actually, if you haven't got the right people and you haven't got them
Yeah.
doing the right things in the right places, then absolutely you're not going to get to that number, no matter how hard you try. So it was all about the performance, all about, the measurements, the KPIs, the objectives, the values, making sure people are happy as well, because when we know that when people are happy and satisfied and connected and feeling that purpose at work, we know that they're more productive, and they're going to be performing better as well.
Having worked on the inside of retail, what you said there is really interesting for me because it probably took me 8 years, 7 or 8 years to get to a point where I was brave enough or confident enough to disregard almost entirely my senior leadership's instructions when taking a new store on.
Hmm.
And I did that because I knew the same as what you just described, right? It wasn't about the numbers, it wasn't about the metrics, it wasn't about the KPIs. If your team weren't behind you, didn't believe in you, didn't have a path forward, weren't motivated, weren't enthusiastic, you could try everything you wanted, but
Hmm.
you might as well just chuck the rest in the bin.
Yeah, that's so true.
And I tried for the longest time. I tried to do it the way I was asked to do it. Change everything. Do a new base rota. The base rotas are wrong. You've got wrong people in at the wrong times. And what I came to realize was actually these people are just being unmotivated. They're not
Yeah.
enthusiastic. They don't have, nobody talks to them and finds out what they want.
No.
Nobody helps them progress in their careers. They just become a number.
Yeah.
And once I hit that point where I was brave enough to say, no, I'm not doing it, the difference in the stores that I ran was huge.
Yeah.
And the management hated it because I was totally rebelling against everything that had been said. I'm like, no, I'm going to do this my way. You're paying me a lot of money to do what I do. Let me do what I do.
Hmm.
And if I'm wrong, well, then we can deal with that consequence afterwards.
Yeah.
And I was never wrong. That the people, if you've got the people behind you, and it's interesting to hear that from a HR perspective, because I know some HR people in that same business who were as frustrated with things as I was.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of, you're right. It's sometimes an us versus them mentality from the leadership team downwards,
Yeah.
but then stuck having to justify actions through KPIs and metrics and red,
Mhm.
green, and finance, because that's what
Mhm.
makes the world go around. But
Yeah.
actually, you've got to kind of take that away and look at things that are hard to quantify.
Mhm.
And I think that's the problem for a lot of those people. They come from a world where they used to be able to put a number on things. I know
Yeah.
what that's worth to me. I know what the return is on that. And you're all of a sudden asking them to almost have faith in something.
Yeah.
And that's really hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really tough. I think the values piece is the prominent part. That attraction marketing when you're recruiting is really important. What is that recruitment strategy? And if you haven't got values and you don't know what your values are, how are you going to be recruiting people that you want to align to those values? Because you don't know what they look like. So the first part is
Yeah.
knowing what you want to be known for internally and externally. What do your clients want to know you for? What do your employees want to know you for? How do they want to feel when they walk into your workplace? How do they want to connect with you and your clients? And that is really important. Once you know those things, then you can build on that recruitment strategy and you can understand what you're looking for when you're going out for your adverts, what platforms you need to be going to. If it's young mums, are you going to be going to, the Financial Times? No, you're absolutely not. You're going to be going to the Mother and Toddler Club and looking for those,
Yeah.
those mums that want to work for you. Or, it's really important that you know what that looks like. So understanding that and then going out and doing those interviews and making sure that those questions that you ask in those interviews absolutely align to those values. And then you've got a bit of a starting point from that. So you know that they're aligned to your values, they have personal values, they'll have probably similar values in the workplace then it's about what do they bring to that purpose? How are they going to be adding
Yeah.
value to your workplace? And what do they want to do? Where do they want to go? Do they want to stay on a level? Do they want to progress? Do they want to develop? Do they want to be the managing director? Like how many ambitions do they have, and where do they want to go is so important. And then you can sort of work
Yeah.
with those people knowing you're all on the same hymn sheet. You've all got the same values, purpose, etc. So it's really important.
What was the turning point for you where you said you'd had enough of corporate and you were going to go it alone?
It was only
What caused that to happen?
2022 I started the business, so we're still very young. um
Mhm.
I guess I've wanted to do it for some years. My son is now 11, and there was a period of time when I was a single parent, so that was a risk, for me to not have that stability for him. Um, but there was always a goal, if you like. There was always that goal of, it's going to happen. The timing will be right when it's right. And I guess that happened around my 40th birthday. I was like, right, put your
Mhm.
big girl pants on. And, what's the worst thing that can happen? We're in a really good position at home. Henry's old enough now, so to be a little bit more self sufficient. And
Yeah.
I just was probably at the point of being unemployable, I think, in the sense that I used to get really frustrated, and there was a role that I was working in near to the end of that period where I would really challenge managing directors, finance directors, be quite vocal about it. I never held back. I'm always transparent, which is why it's one of our values. Um, because I need people to really understand the justification for my reasoning, and it really is down to them whether they want to change or not change. And absolutely, some people and some businesses are not prepared to change despite what they tell you in the beginning. So I kind of got to the point where I was like, do you know what? These businesses want to change, but actually, when you get in, they don't want to change. I really want to work with businesses that are inspired by change and by, doing things differently, but actually have a passion for people and want to do the right thing by
Yeah.
their people and lead by people. So I did some coaching. I'm obviously a coach as well. So during lockdown, did lots of sort of one-to-one coaching, group coaching online, and I do lots of meditation. And actually, the name Minds HR came to me through meditation. And I was like, wow, okay, this is it. Literally, this is it.
Yeah.
So started creating things whilst I was in a corporate role, was very transparent with my director at the time and just said, look, I'm going to be stepping out on this day. I'll happily do the redundancies that we've got underway at the moment. I'll see you through, of course, and I'll support you as I need to. But this is the end game for me, and this is the date I'm finishing, you know. And actually, I probably would have been made redundant myself. Who
Yeah.
knows? But they knew what I was planning behind the scenes, and I just got everything aligned, my LinkedIn profile ready to go, you know, marketing, website, you name it. It kind of was like a switch on. And then September the 26th, 2022, I remember it like it was yesterday, did a live on my LinkedIn and said, hey, here I am. I'm now self-employed.
Fantastic.
Here we go. Help me, support me, kind of thing, very vulnerably. Don't know where this is going to go. And I've never looked back. It's been incredible.
To say, this is what I'm doing. Like, I find a lot of people are, it's amazing how many people take the leap out of corporate and 6 months pass and they realize that they still haven't told their immediate network what it is that they're doing now compared to what they used to do. Because you make an assumption that people would know, because I've been posting it in my LinkedIn feed and
Yeah.
I have been saying things, and I've changed my company here. And actually what you do need to do is exactly what you've said, and just make that splash to
Yeah.
say,
Hello.
I've arrived.
Hello, I'm here.
I've arrived.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
No, absolutely. And actually,
Um,
there was a few clients that had been referred to us by past people that I'd worked with. And I'm talking, gosh, 15, 20 years ago that have come through and said, oh, you go to Mindset HR, it's Gemma, we used to work with Gemma, etc. So that's really
yeah.
lovely. That's really lovely. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. You know, when you're in a profession and you've been in it for a long time, you would hope those people that you've really nurtured and helped and supported, whether they're manager level, supervisor level, you know, director level, that they would really have your back and support you.
Yeah.
And we're finding that is the case. So that's wonderful.
It's what I call in the industry a brand legacy, right?
Mhm.
Where personal brand, without even trying, right? Like,
Yeah.
everybody has a personal brand, and we all get hung up on this word personal branding. But
Yes.
actually, all it is just how you're talked about when you're not in the room,
Yeah.
regardless of who it is that you're talking about, whether it's your previous team that you used to work with, whether it's people on LinkedIn, whether it's your friends and family circle. We've all got a personal brand.
Absolutely.
But to hear someone who's built such a brand themselves through your work ethics and how you've held yourself, that people, like you say, 20 years later, that's phenomenal. Because
Yeah.
that is, I know the problems that you need to solve. I know who needs to solve them. And I know that they're the only person that can solve them in the way that you need them solving.
Yeah.
And that's what all of us should be aiming for,
Yeah.
is that kind of clarity on what separates us from everyone else.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, HR isn't exactly a small space. It's quite crowded already, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So to have that impact on people who you've worked with in the past, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what is it that, if somebody was to, right, they've identified they've got a HR problem that they need support with, whether it's recruitment, whether it's legal work, whether it's just employee engagement type stuff, they've identified that, you and a couple of others are potential candidates to help them solve that. What is it that you would talk to them about how you're different from everybody else? What is it that sets you unique?
Again, it depends on very much what it is that they need solving, but I guess our sort of USP is that we do work with business owners. We help them sleep at night, and a lot of the time, that's what I say when I go out networking. Is people say, you know, what do you do? And instead of saying I'm an HR consultant, they switch off sleep. It's like
Yep.
hypnotherapy.
HR.
HR
Oh.
run. Where's the exit? Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit like finance. And so I always say we help business owners sleep at night, and they kind of look at me a little bit strangely, but it really sparks a conversation. So that's
Yeah.
probably one thing that we would say, is that we help business owners sleep at night. And the reason we do that is because we're not just their HR partners. We will speak to you 10 o'clock at night, and we have been doing that the last couple of weeks. You know, if you need to ring us because you can't sleep and you've got something you want to discuss to be able to sleep, then give us a call and we'll help you unpick that and unprocess that in your mind. We also very much are visible in business. So we like to, visit at least once a month, with our clients, talk through any priorities and things like that. But we're visible. We don't just sit in the ivory tower. We work with the business owners, but we also support the employees. So all of the employees will have
Yeah.
our details. They can contact us if they don't want to go to their manager. Because what we also know is most flat structures don't have that hierarchy to be able to, reach out to another manager or different level. So we are that other level, if you like. So we can come in and they can call us or email us and say, look, I've got this problem with my manager, got nowhere else to go. How do we resolve it? And we can start then
Yeah.
working on resolving that issue before it escalates or before they leave or before they raise a grievance. We're that proactive support. So that's really key. And actually sometimes it's much more about the how and the what as to what rather than what the actual problem is. And actually, what we find is a lot of owners of businesses will think it's a problem, thinks a situation's a problem, but actually, when you start unpicking it, it's a completely different problem. What you think sort of starts off as being one thing actually ends up being another. And then we can actually step in and take that kind of pressure off and manage that whole process and situation to make sure that it goes the right way. And because we're impartial, we can be challenging when we want to be, whether that's to the manager, the business owner, the FD, whatever. Whereas when you've got an in-house HR, they've got to protect themselves, they've got to protect the politics, and they've got to protect the brand, they've got to protect their job. They're a little bit exposed to
Yeah.
actually being able to say what they really think. For us to be able to go, do you know what? You're not doing it the right way, actually. And have you thought about doing it this way? Or, what if I said this was happening? How would you respond to that? Having those open discussions is really important, and I think that probably makes us stand out particularly.
I
And of
like that.
course, we offer the mindset coaching side as well. So if there are individuals that we feel are struggling with life generally and
Mhm.
have got a well-being issue or have suffered from trauma in the past, then we can start reprogramming that subconscious and start working with them on an individual basis as well, which is really powerful.
It is. It's a really unique way of looking at things. And I think for me, the thing that tipped it was how you describe yourself to somebody who you've never met.
Mm.
Right. And that is what a lot of business owners really do miss, because it's a simple statement that's actually really hard to come up with, to be fair. Like, it's not as easy as they're always really simple statements. And it's so simple that because you've got your head in the weeds as a business owner, you very rarely can you come up with them yourself. So, like, hats off that you've got that, because it creates that curiosity and that emotional engagement to go, huh, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And you've been invited in at that point, and that is the bit that so many people miss.
Yeah.
Just creating that, because otherwise you've got to go either a hard sales pitch or a really boring sales pitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what you've done is you've kind of you're the vampire at the window almost. That's a horrible way of describing it. But you've been invited in to discuss things, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's what we all want to be able to do, and it makes for a much nicer conversation. So
Yeah.
if you don't mind, did you come up with that statement yourself? Is that something that you thought of, or is it something somebody else said to you?
Which statement, sorry?
That we help business owners sleep at night.
It was something that I came up with. I think comments had been made from clients about
Mhm.
not being able to sleep because of people problems. We work with a lot of family businesses, and they're having fallouts. And
Mhm.
that's when you have the emotional attachment as well as the professional attachment to your business, that's a really
Yeah.
different ball game to be in.
Yeah.
And we help them to navigate through the emotional side, but also the professional and the legislative side as well, and keeping them compliant. So those two things. So I often say to the business owners that are literally you can see them combusting in the room because they're going red, they're angry, and
Yeah.
this is what they want to happen. I'm like, right, let's take a step back. Let's sit down, let's do some
Mhm.
work. Let's talk about how you're feeling. Let's talk about you. How does this make you feel? What does that look like? And how is that coming out in reality. And often they'll say, I'm just not sleeping. I can't sleep.
Yeah.
So that's probably where that came from. There's probably a few others that we tend to use as well, that when we go out networking and trying to take away that stigma of HR, because we are HR, and when I set the brand, I actually didn't want HR in the brand name, but I kind of had to, because if not, people wouldn't know what we did. But it's changing that stereotypical view of HR, because I do know, and I think people think that HR people don't know. We absolutely do know that there's a stigma to HR, and we're seen as the bad guys, or
Yep.
we don't really have any influence in business, and that's very corporate. So changing that stigma is about being that sort of person that can go in and challenge the status quo.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Gemma. There's a lot of detail to dig into there. I think you handled the questions really well. So thank you very much for sharing your journey with us.
You're welcome.
If folks are listening along at home and they want to find out a bit more about you or Mindset HR, it's the best way for them to contact you.
So definitely on LinkedIn, that is a place where we hang out. So either on my page, Gemma Crane, or on the Mindset HR, or the website, which is www.mindset-hr.co.uk. But we do podcasts, we do networking, we're out and about. So if you're particularly, East Anglia wise and in that location, you will probably see us, because we get out a lot to different venues and events and things. But yeah, thanks for having me on today.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for being a guest. And if you watch along at home, thank you for being our audience. We love you very much, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes, and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.